Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ebony Love. I'm currently in Jacksonville, Florida. And today we are joined, actually today is Friday, December 9th, 2022. We are conducting an interview via Zoom with the incredible, incomparable Charlyn Stanberry. And I will let you introduce yourself. Tell us where you are physically located, and I'll start with my questions after that.
Oh, awesome. So I'm happy to be here with the amazing Ebony Love. And I am physically located in Washington, D.C.
Okay, and so I like to start with a kind of grounding question. What is your earliest memory?
Ooh, my earliest memory. And is this in regards to balsa in general?
However you like to interpret that question.
Wow. I'm actually gonna make it a balsa earliest memory. I remember when I actually was working for State Farm after graduating from undergrad. And a lot of my friends went straight from undergrad to law school. And I remember looking somehow at the NABALSA website, and a lot of my friends were on the SirBalsa board or the NABALSA board. And I was just remember being fixated on it because I'm like, what is this organization that all my friends are on these websites and they're doing these amazing things? So, that was even before I was able to go to law school. So that was my earliest memory, I would say, of balsa, and it stuck with me.
Okay, and just taking a step back, earlier I introduced myself and I said that I'm in Jacksonville, Florida. And from my understanding, you are also from Jacksonville, Florida.
Whoop, whoop.
Did you grow up here your entire life, or were you born somewhere else and then moved?
Absolutely. So born and raised in Jacksonville, Florida. My mom's side is actually like 7 generations out of Jacksonville. So it's an area in Jacksonville called Arlington. And my family church is basically there. It's a small pocket area called Lone Star. And so our church, which is our family church, where all my cousins still to this day live, is in that Lone Star area. And then also, if I look at the census from part of the 1800s, some of my great grandparents also were in the Mandarin area. So I'm proud Duvalian, as they say, Jacksonville-nonian, whatever you want to call it, but born and raised.
What is your mother's full name and maiden name?
So my mother's full name is a handful. Is Roxy Ann Jonetta Bartley Stanberry. So her maiden name is Bartley, and Bartley is the big family that I come from that's in that Arlington and Lone Star area. But also on my mother's side, a couple other family names are Brooks, Demps, are big. So if anybody knows any Bartleys, Brooks, or Demps or Whites, more than likely I'm related to you.
This is a random aside, has nothing to do with balsa. Do you know Maria Demps?
I've heard the name Maria Demps. We probably come from the same bloodline.
So she's actually one of my older sorority sisters. She went to the University of Florida, but also very coincidentally, she went to middle school and high school with my judge, which I also went to the same middle school and high school as all of them, which is Darnell Cookman for middle school, and then Stanton College Prep. Well, now it's Stanton College Prep for high school. Slide aside, weird, like bringing this all together. Sorry.
So what's funny that you say that is I went to Darnell Cookman for middle school too. But for high school, I went to Paxton School for Advanced Studies. So I went to the rival school, but both my dad and then my grandmother graduated from Stanton before it was college prep. So if anybody knows about Jacksonville, you either can find somebody by their last name, what church they attended, or what schools they attended.
And for completeness sake, I know, but what is the name of your family's church?
Oh, so my family church is Mount Zion United Methodist Church, and it's still there to this day. I actually just went to a funeral. That may sound doom and gloom. It's actually not the way that my family orchestrates for one of my cousins, and we have a family cemetery that's right next to it. So I literally, every time I go to the church, I visit the grave site because I see everybody that I grew up with. And also, you know, my great grandparents that I didn't even know. But that's a fun fact about me. The family cemetery, literally everybody is out there. I can trace my whole tree from that side, both on my mom's maternal side and my mom's paternal side.
And so going back to, you said you went to Paxson School for the Advanced Studies. How did you know that you wanted to go to undergraduate, like to college? And then how did you pick your college?
Oh, yeah. So I actually have in Jacksonville and Ebony, you know this, a lot of people make sure their kids go through the magnet school pipeline. So I actually started school out at a private school, University Christian school, and begged my mom to get me out of that place. I wanted to be around students that kind of looked like me, kids that looked like me, and the neighborhood kids. So I ended up going to Greenfield Elementary, which was a neighborhood school, but it also was a part of the magnet program. And from Greenfield, I just automatically knew I was either going to be at James Weldon Johnson or Darnell Cookman, because it was, you know, feeding into, those were the prep schools. So already in my head and my parents and my grandparents, I needed to be in a prep middle school, college prep. And then that funneled me into going into, I actually wanted to go to Stanton, and at one point I was going to transfer after my first year at Paxson to go to Stanton. I guess that was me trying to create some family, finish my family legacy, but it didn't work out that way. So went to Paxson, and it was just a known fact. You know, everyone that graduates from our class, the classes before us, end up going to college. If you don't go straight to college, you end up going into the military and then somehow feeding later to go into college. So I've just always known that, you know, going to a university was going to be a part of my game plan. And I ended up going to the University of Central Florida. And luckily, I would say this, about 50 of the people in my class ended up going to UCF too. So I have a close bond with the people that I went to some middle, high school, and then college together with.
And so you said a lot in that response, and I just want to get your kind of feelings. Did you know who James Weldon Johnson was when you were thinking about middle schools?
Absolutely. I think, you know, growing up in Jacksonville and singing Lift Every Voice and Sing literally every month or some, depending on what church you go to, you may sing that every Sunday. You know, James Weldon Johnson and his brother Rosamond Johnson just have a dynamic legacy. So, you know, knowing that legacy, and then also seeing the middle school, because on my dad's side, a lot of my cousins did end up going to James Weldon Johnson. Plus my grandmother's house was near that area. So driving by it 24/7, you know, of course, we know like the dynamic legacy of James Weldon Johnson and his brother.
And sad to say, I think that the middle school actually just moved and replaced Paxson Middle School. I'm pretty sure that that happened. But
Wow.
and the other, like, placing myself, I think I can see the old James Weldon from where I'm sitting right now. But back to you and UCF. So you ended up at UCF. Can you kind of tell me about like what your first year of undergrad looked like?
Oh, absolutely. I feel like this is gonna sound really weird. I feel like my first year, well, my freshman year of college was an extension of high school for me. I say that because I was able to have a shelter environment with people and instant friends with people that I graduated high school from, with Paxson, but also UCF is in Orlando, is not too far. And so a lot of people from Duval County, from Jacksonville, ended up going to UCF. So I think it was really nice because it semi felt like a high school reunion of some sorts, because we would be naming different people. Oh, this person played football at Inglewood, and this person was a part of the med program at Wilson High School. It was nice to have a mixture of that, but also to be exposed to all of the different groups, as far as like the extracurricular groups that are part of UCF. I think that was something that was also good for me. So For example, when I was in high school, I was a part of a business and engineering prep program called Inroads. And so I started Inroads when I was a senior in junior in high school, actually. And Inroads got together a bunch of students of color who knew that they wanted to go to college and they wanted to major in business, some type of business major or some type of engineering major. And you could apply to the program, and it included a little bit of everybody from every high school in Jacksonville. And so with Inroads, one of my mentors from Inroads, who already was a senior when she got to UCF, was from Jacksonville. So I had an instant mentor in her, who also happens to be an AKA, hence that'll be part of my other story. And then when I was in high school, I was a pageant queen, I guess you would say. I was Miss Paxson. And so I was Miss Paxson 2002. The Miss Paxson from 1999 also went to UCF. So she became a mentor, and she actually was a part of a group that I'm in still to this day called the Black Female Development Circle. So I had an instant group of Black women looking out for me there. But the icing on the cake was my senior year of high school. My mom and her choir were traveling to Gainesville, and they sung at a church. There's a church in Gainesville called Bartley Temple, hence her maiden name Bartley, another family church. And one of my cousins, who's my mom's cousin, so maybe my mom's second or third cousin, he moved from Jacksonville to Gainesville to be with his wife, who was originally from Archer. And so I saw him. I've seen him a couple of times, but knew that his family was always in Gainesville. And when I told him that I was going to UCF, he said, you have a big cousin at UCF. And so his son, Chris Polk, actually, another family named Polk, was a senior at UCF when I was a freshman and I entered there. And my cousin was like the big time person that everybody loves and adores. He was the chief justice on the UCF Judicial Council. So I got a chance to become a justice on the council my freshman year. So I think that I was able to have an extension of my family from Jacksonville that I went to high school with and middle school with and were a part of programs. But it also was good for me to actually have my actual family there that's going to look out for me.
You said that you were in a group called Inroads in high school. Is that an acronym, or is it spelled I-Inroads?
Oh, it's I-Inroads. Mm-hmm. So when I went to undergrad, I majored in marketing.
Only marketing, or did you have any minors?
So only marketing.
And so how do you go from a marketing major into having an interest in the law?
Crazy. No, I'm just playing. Okay. So I'm thinking back to my childhood. You know how some people say like you're an old person's child? I don't know if you've heard that type of expression. I'm an old person's child, if you could tell. I grew up having a great grandmother that I went to her house every day, and a great grand uncle who lived with my great grandmother. My great grand uncle, Clement Demps, hence Demps, the family name, it was always infatuated with politics. Like, even as a little girl, I could not change the TV to look at cartoons. It was stayed on CNN, local news, BET, or some type of history channel. And so my Uncle Demps, that's what we affectionately called him, always would talk to me. He was always infatuated with Charlie Rangel and Adam Clayton Powell and Shirley Chisholm and all of these political figures, in addition to the local politicians that we had. I've always had that type of interest, and that I've always tried to do events and do things surrounded around policy and politics and community affairs. Got to UCF, got involved in SGA via my cousin. Then I got involved in the President's Leadership Council at UCF, which was like our ambassador program. And my mentor said, Charlyn, your face lights up when you're around these political figures. I remember John McCain, I'm dating myself. John McCain came to UCF and I was one of the main ambassadors. Governor Jeb Bush, again, dating myself. I was the lead point person to stay with him the entire time when he came to give a speech and do a tour of UCF. And Nancy will always tell me, you need to look into law school. And I'm like, Nancy, why law school? Because, I didn't really know if I wanted to practice, so to speak. Everything that I thought about lawyers, I saw on TV. So I always thought that you had to be a criminal attorney or some corporate attorney. But Nancy kept pressing the issue as my career went on. So graduated undergrad a semester early, ended up getting a master's in public administration. Nancy still kept pressing me about law school. Then I started working for State Farm because I needed a job and it was a recession. Nancy was still pressing me about law school. It wasn't until during the recession that I did a little bit more research, and I saw that a lot of people that worked in policy or that were elected officials had law degrees, but they didn't practice, so to speak. So it gave me a comfort level. But to this day, I think Nancy's the reason why I'm even a lawyer lobbyist at that to this day, because she put that in my ear. Come to find out, quick story about Nancy. Nancy actually wanted to go to law school herself. She went to Florida State for undergrad. And one of her mentors told her that as a female that she wouldn't make the cut or make it in regards to law school, and that she needs to consider getting her PhD. Nancy ended up getting her PhD in educational leadership, but she regrets having someone, kind of deter her dreams about being a lawyer.
What is Nancy's last name?
Oh, Nancy Marshall. So Dr. Nancy Marshall.
And don't lose the thought. Can you describe her demographics? Is she a Black woman?
She's actually a white female, no kids, never been married. She was a professor of English. She taught a couple English and educational leadership courses at UCF. But she was heavily involved in being our advisor for the President's Leadership Council. I think Nancy would have been a great politician, to be honest with you. But she also was someone that was very encouraging of women, and particularly just women from all diverse backgrounds. So she mentored me, right? She mentored a lot of Black females, a lot of AAPI females, a lot of Latinas. Like that was her passion. She felt like she wanted to give us all of the skill set and all of the encouragement that we need, because she didn't get it.
And what does AAPI mean?
Oh, Asian American Pacific Islander.
Okay. And then before, you started your story with saying that you were in State Farm, looking at all your friends going through law school and going through that process. Before you get to State Farm, before you start looking at the Serbalsa website, had you ever encountered a Black attorney before?
Oh, great question. I probably have, but didn't associate with them, so to speak, being an attorney, if that makes sense. So I don't really have attorneys in my family, just being honest with you. A lot of the groundbreakers that I have in my family either have their PhDs. Like I have a cousin that's a professor of African-American history at Clemson. He's top notch. His brother went to Harvard and is like this surgeon, but we don't really have that many attorneys. So as far as being associated or really knowing a Black attorney before then, no, unless they were probably an elected official, and I, identified more with them being an elected official opposed to being a lawyer themselves.
And so you're at State Farm. Dr. Marshall is encouraging you to go to law school. You're kind of coming to that decision on your own. How did you choose the law school you chose, and what was that law school?
Oh, awesome. So Oh, I'll go on record about it. State Farm was not it for me. I was a claim. I'll be 100 with you on that. I was a claims adjuster. Um, I literally would go to work and be like, this cannot be my life for the rest of the time. And the young individual I was dating at that time, his father worked for State Farm. So that's another way that I got into the State Farm family, so to speak. I ended up getting, State Farm had a mentorship program, and I purposely picked the in-house lawyer at State Farm. And I picked it because, like I mentioned, I don't have lawyers in my family. I didn't really know what options were really out there, but every time I would go back to UCF to visit Dr. Marshall, she would still be putting a law school birdie in my ear. And so started speaking with the in-house counsel who was my mentor at State Farm, adored her, loved her. She even told me I need to consider law school. The other thing I think in my head, I still knew that I wanted to get a graduate degree. And I didn't know if I wanted to get a PhD and have to do 5 years in a dissertation, or do a JD and flip it to do more policy work. Policy work is what really ended up happening. So I thought that I would end up being a health lawyer and use that to flip it to be a hospital administrator. This is during a time that we had our fabulous president, Barack Obama, and his wife, First Lady Michelle Obama, who actually used to work for the University of Chicago medical system. And so I love Michelle like America does. And that was just an interesting path that she took. So I thought that that would kind of be my path. I have a NEO. And for everybody that knows that, it's a sorority sister that came in your same chapter after you. Her name is Brittany O'Neill. She's actually married, so I forgot her married name. But Brittany ended up being one of those people that went straight from undergrad to law school that I knew about Balsa too. She went to University of Florida for law school. And Brittany was, just like you, Ebony. Brittany was a part of a program affiliated with the ABA called CLEO. The Council on Legal Opportunity. And Brittany participated in CLEO, and CLEO had a series of programs that you could be a part of. And one of them was a 6-week summer institute. And during those 6 weeks, I think it cost maybe like $2,500. During those 6 weeks, it was a stimulation of your first year of law school. And you would be eligible for a scholarship while you're in law school. Plus, they would assist you with getting into other law schools. So Brittany graduated from it. I ended up stacking my income tax money, a refund that I got back to participate in a CLEO program. And it happened to be at Florida International University. Now, I know everybody is so excited about Miami, but being a little country girl from Jacksonville, it was a lot. To think about moving from, I was in Tampa at the time, to Miami, but I ended up doing the 6-week summer institute. I knew that I wanted to do health law. So the law schools I actually applied to I did a mixture. One was law schools focused on health law. So the law school that was my big time that I wanted to go to focus on health law actually was Georgia State University. They have a joint JD and Master's in Health Administration program that I was going to look at and do. Ended up getting waitlisted there. Then I figured I would apply to Florida schools because of the in-state tuition. And so I applied to FAMU because it's in Orlando, it's FAMU, never went to HBCU myself, got into FAM. I ended up applying to University of Miami, thought I was going to be at University of Florida, and got waitlisted at all of those places, including Florida International University. I figured if I didn't go to Georgia State or University of Georgia and participate in their health programs, I would stay local and just have an internship with the local hospital system. So everybody knows, like, healthcare is huge in Florida. So I already had this plan where I was going to be at UF Shands for one semester. And then the next semester, I was going to be at the VA hospital. Maybe I would go back to Jacksonville and intern with Mayo Clinic. I had a full game plan. To be honest with you, FIU was not in that game plan. But after I did my 6-week summer institute, I got off the waiting list and accepted. And so that's how I ended up at FIU.
Okay, just circling back on a couple of things. You said that you were in an in-house lawyer internship program. Do you remember the name of the lawyer that you were shadowing?
No, but I can get it. I know her first name was Rebecca. I don't remember her last name. And she also was another white female.
And then you said Brittany O'Neill. There's a lot of ways to spell Brittany. Do you know?
Oh, okay. Brittany is Brittany. And then O'Neill is O''Neil. And I think she still goes by her name. She actually ended up marrying a professor, and who she met at University of Florida. Actually, he was in a PhD program at UF, and now he teaches at University of Kentucky.
We have quite a bit of connections between the different grad programs at the University of Florida because there's not a lot of Black graduate students. And so we have this organization called the Black Graduate Student Organization. And it brings all graduates, whether you're getting a master's, a PhD, a JD, a MD, brings them all together in one group. So I can completely see how that happened. But back to you. So you're in FIU, you're starting out. What was the environment during your 1L year?
Oh God, hectic, chaotic. I mean, those are just words, crazy. I think I gave more of a foundation that I don't have attorneys in my family, right? I did not, even though I did that 6-week summer stimulation, I did not know what to expect in law school. So, and you don't have to cut this out, I'm just being 100. After my first semester, I was on academic probation. And I think it's like important for people to mention that. And the reason why I was on it is because I was studying for the class, the day-to-day class, opposed to studying for the actual exam. And so I think that is important for us, particularly Black law students, to know that and to have the resources. So I would come to class and, know the cases, be able to spit it out, Socratic method, left and right. But meanwhile, my colleagues were studying every weekend with, their resources, these books that they had, are new to go in the library, and they get the former tests from these professors to study for the actual exam. So they already knew, oh, maybe I just need to study because this professor typically exam is multiple choice, or this professor's exam is typically, essay, right? Like I didn't know any of that. So I'm studying more class to class, and I'm thinking, the final exam is just going to be a summary of the entire class. It was not that, if y'all knew, right? And so what ended up happening is one of our Black professors, her name is Dean Michelle Mason. Dean Mason, no, that's my girl. I rock for her, I ride for her. Dean Mason actually is the individual that brought Clio to FIU. Dean Mason herself was a Clio graduate. And so, she wanted to create a diverse pipeline of law students at FIU, but she also knew that there would be some struggles because we don't come from, I had classmates down in Miami who all their parents, grandparents were all lawyers. So they knew how to play the game. I didn't know how to play the game. Dean Mason actually had a tutor, identified a tutor. Her name is Janelle, and I think it's Johnson right now. I have to think about what Janelle's married name is. Janelle was an FIU graduate. She was like BALSA president, and she was an attorney. I feel like she was still a Department of Justice attorney down in Miami. And even though Janelle had just graduated, Janelle, I don't know if she was valedictorian or salutatorian, but her whole thing was she always wanted to tutor BALSA students because the BALSA students at FIU were either on like an academic probation or academic review type. So got with Janelle, and it's interesting. Some of my best friends to this day from law school were the ones who all of us were on academic probation that first semester. And Janelle ended up tutoring us, and our grades just went from whatever they were, C's, D's, and F's to like A's and B's. Like I think like next semester I got like almost all A's and just 1 or 2 B's. So that's something I think, that is a part of my story, right? In addition to, it's still Miami. I moved down to Miami when LeBron James decided he was taking his talents to South Beach. So you know what that happens? What that means, South Beach happens, right? So in addition to South Beach and LeBron James and D Wade and Chris Bosh, in addition to still not knowing how to create my schedule, and how to create boundaries with my family, with my schedule, and my friends with my schedule. Those are life lessons that I don't take for granted. And I like to tell as many law students or pre-law students as they can about the importance of that.
Okay, so you just mentioned how you went from coming into law school not really knowing how to play the game because you don't have attorneys in your family, and having Dean Mason bring in Janelle Johnson. So was that your first introduction with other BALSA students, or like how did you get involved with your local BALSA chapter?
So BALSA was in my head. So we can go back to the first question you asked me about, like what was one of my first memories, and I brought up BALSA. BALSA was already in my head from when I was first graduating undergrad, and having so many friends that were involved in BALSA on the local, the regional, and the national level. So I automatically knew that once I got to law school, I need to get involved in my local BALSA chapter. And I remember on my FIU, I think I was like the only 1L at the time that really attended BALSA meetings. Then, having Janelle was always, she was my tutor. She was my mentor, somebody, a role model. I knew BALSA was important to Janelle. And so once my grades took a great turn, I ended up being like the BALSA representative, the NABALSA representative for my local FIU BALSA chapter. And also, one of my sorority sisters, who is a UF undergrad alum, but a North Carolina Central Law School alum, Jamie Davis. Jamie, at the time, I had always kept up with Jamie. Jamie was on the board for SirBalsa. And so I ended up being able to go to our national convention that March. So that's March of 2011. It was held in Houston, Texas, because at the time, Jamie was running for SirBalsa chair. So I kind of already had like a familiarity of BALSA between all of my sorority sisters that was involved, Janelle being my tutor and mentor, and then my friends who previously, and they were practicing attorneys at that time, had been involved in BALSA.
Okay, so the March 2011 convention was in Houston, and you said that your friend Jamie Davis was running for SirBalsa chair. Mm-hmm. So was it in the past, did you elect your regional chairs at the national convention? Is that how it worked?
So now that I think about it, Jamie had already accepted chair. So thank you, Ebony. Correct me, girl. Jamie had already accepted the chair role. The current SirBalsa chair at that time was running for national chair. So that's what it is. His name was Van Freeman. So Jamie, in essence, had been Van's successor. So while Van was running for national chair, the role that he had before that was SirBalsa chair. Ironically, just so that you know, Van ran for national chair against Chibundu Nanake, who ended up becoming the chair at the time. Buns and I to this day are buddies, and I'm close with him and his wife, and he lives in Washington, D.C.
Okay. I'm gonna have to ask you how to spell that. Not now. I'm not gonna put you on the
Okay.
spot because like I heard it, but yeah. So it was Van Freeman, then Jamie Davis, and then who was chair after Jamie Davis?
Me.
Okay. And how long did you have one term or were you a multi-term chair?
So if I had one term, so I did for my 1L year, my BALSA involvement was being the local NABALSA representative for FIU's BALSA chapter. My 2L year, sorry, I'm getting confused. When Jamie was SRBALSA chair, I ended up being SRBALSA attorney general. That is one of the reasons why it was important for me to go to Houston for that national convention, because I know Jamie had just won the SRBALSA chair position and that she was ready to stack her board, and I was applying to be on her board. So yeah, 1L year, I was my local chapter's NABALSA rep. My 2L year, I was SRBALSA attorney general when Jamie Davis was SRBALSA chair. And then my 3L year, I was SRBALSA chair after Jamie.
And you entered law school in 2010?
Yes.
Who came after you as chair?
As chair, Ruth Tisdale.
You know who?
And Ruth went to Wake Forest for law school. So that was 2014. Yeah, 2013 and 2014.
Just trying to create the timeline here.
Okay, perfect.
When you became SRBALSA chair in 2012 to 2013, what did you want to accomplish as chair?
Win region of the year. That was the top thing. No, I mean, okay, I had several things that I wanted to accomplish, right? Region of the year was like the big thing. So, you know, what I wanted when I thought about how I wanted to outline my year, and Jamie was my SRBALSA mentor. Let's not get it twisted, right? So like I had already seen a good blueprint from Jamie, and had a whole year to kind of like prepare in my mind, if I ran for chair, what would be some things that I would want to, you know, change or maintain, or add. So I base it a little bit off of the region of the year application. I base it a little bit off of having Jamie and talking to Jamie, and then Jamie put me in touch with previous SRBALSA chairs. One of them is Kachavius English, who right now lives in Washington, D.C., is my buddy now. I just remember having to stalk him down to get a conversation. Like I had a whole list of former SRBALSA chairs I was calling. I think Francis is on my list. And I even called and stalked some NABALSA former chairs like Melinda Hightower, Tiffany Munsell, you know, Chibundu, like I mentioned, he had no choice, but I was bothering him. So I try to be a little bit strategic, not only to like, it wasn't just region of the year, but to get their input on what were different things that they think they could have done better or they wanted to do and they weren't able to accomplish. The other thing I wanted to do my year is just create like an energy and a vibe. So I got that necessarily from going back, actually my 1L year when I went to the Houston convention. Ironically, Chibundu at the time, and I'm calling him Buns because that's our nickname for him. Buns was a convention chair while he was running for NABALSA chair. That convention was so live. I just remember like coming back and it's like, man, like, you know, we're law students and we're having these nice run conventions and workshops and we're networking with these attorneys and, you know, it's this Black excellence. And so in my head, I want to kind of create that same energy for the Southern region. And I think that kind of led into me wanting to change, just not say that we're SRBALSA, to say that we're the sophisticated region, because I would go to these conventions and, my boss is doing cat calls and all kind of stuff. And, knee Balsa had something, everybody had like their title, and Sir Balsa really didn't have something. So we're like, thinking, well, what are we going to call it? And luckily Jamie's year, I would say maybe 1/4 of her board continue on to my year. So we became like a tight-knit family. And a lot of us are Southern country girls. So we're like, oh, sophisticated. Like that sounds, kind of nice and Southern. So my biggest thing, not only in winning region of the year, it was just to create and foster like that community and that energy within like the South.
Do you think that you were successful?
I hope so. Yeah. I mean, I won region of the year. That was, one thing. I think my mama kept the award. I need to go look in the house for it. But I won region of the year. I think, to this day, hopefully they still say the sophisticated Southern region of Balsa. And I like themes. So I do see like a parallel into like some of the things that Sir Balsa is still having and doing. I'm trying, my theme for the year. Yeah, I didn't say that because I liked my theme. I always was a person that loved gossip sites. I don't know why. I just like reading the news and keeping up with what's going on. And one of my favorite gossip sites was YBF, Young, Black, and Fabulous. And so then I said, oh, why don't we switch it up and do YBE, Young, Black, YBE. Hold on, I got to go back and look for what it stands for. Anyway, I remember it being YBE, and that was also, it's either like Young, Black, and Empowered, or I'll go back and look for it. But so every time we would like have our events and be talking about Sir Balsa stuff, we're like YBE, YBE. And then we ended up making a logo for it and everything. I'm gonna go back in my email and look for it as we're talking too, because I liked my little YBE theme.
It's okay. And like while you're looking, I know that the themes were really important because during my year, so the pandemic part, I was 2020 to 2021. Our theme was Tell Them We Are Rising. And so it's like one of those things that as soon as you come up with a theme, and as if it speaks to you and it speaks to a lot of people, it's something that you kind of carry with you throughout the rest of your career, the rest of your life. And it just so happened that I came up with that theme and I didn't even know what 2020 was going to look like. It's like you come up with a theme April. Well, I think I came up with it in March of 2020 before the pandemic was a real thing. And then Ahmaud Arbery was murdered. George Floyd was murdered. The pandemic happened. Breonna Taylor. And I'm like, oh my God. Okay, y'all, we still have this theme and we're still going to make it work and we're going to rise and like tell the world that we are rising. So I completely understand like how empowering your theme can be, because you never know what's going to happen during your year. And it's kind of one of those things that, just like I asked a grounding question at the beginning of this conversation, that was your grounding for your theme, like for your the direction of the region for your year is your theme. And you said it before you start, but whew, I get it.
I found it too, Ebony.
Mm-hmm.
It was the sophisticated Southern region of Balsa and the YBE movement, young, bold, and empowered.
Like my stalling tactic. Okay, a couple of quick just like, also you are now my history source. What states were in the Southern region when you were chair?
So when I was chair, oh gosh, okay, I feel like I'm on Jeopardy now. So we got Florida, we have Georgia, we have South Carolina, we have North Carolina, you have Tennessee, you have Alabama, and you have Arkansas, and you have Louisiana.
And Mississippi?
And Mississippi and Puerto Rico.
Okay, so those states, I think Arkansas and Louisiana are not. Was Texas in your region?
No, Texas was in at the time the Rocky Mountain region.
While we're here, I forgot a very important part in my introduction. We're also joined by Allie Wagner. Allie, where are you located right now?
I'm in Atlanta, Georgia.
And Allie, do you have any questions while we're kind of in this section? It's okay if you don't.
Yeah, I don't at this time.
Okay. Charlyn, what is something that you want current members of BALSA to know?
That's a great. I would want current BALSA members to know that what you put into BALSA is what you're going to get out. And also that this BALSA can be the start of your legal professional career. And I don't think that a lot of students understand what I mean when I say that. What I mean is this is a part of you branding yourself as the lawyer that you want to be and you want to become. And so with all the resources that BALSA has and all of the pipeline that BALSA is creating, particularly to the National Bar Association, I got to put that plug out because I'm on that board too now. This is the start. This is you creating what type of lawyer you're going to be. So if you are not, if you're not keeping your commitments and your promises, that may be something that trickles down to your effect as a lawyer when you're getting older. To this day, this may sound really weird. Even with me being in NBA and it being the feeder organization from BALSA, we still have people to this day that's like, I remember so-and-so, their BALSA chapter wasn't that good, or I asked them to do this and they didn't come through with their commitment, or, oh, I remember this person, they were on the national board for BALSA. Like to this day, literally, people are still saying that.
And as an alum looking back, can you kind of describe how you view NBALSA now and kind of what its impact means in the broader community, whether it's the legal community or like the law school community? What does NBALSA mean as an alum looking into the organization now?
Yeah, I mean, I think NBALSA is the pipeline. NBALSA is the reason why a lot of people are able to have a resume. There are a lot of people that literally have not had a job until they get to law school. And so when they intern, their internships or externships are what they have on their resume. NBALSA adds a little sprinkle on it because it puts you in a leadership role. In addition to that, it puts you in a networking role where you are networking with your school administrators and you're networking with other law students and other attorneys. And people forget this, but a lot of my friends to this day, how they get cases is from NBALSA and people that they have interacted with in NBALSA. How, they're partners at their law firms. They may have, done mock trial together or been participating in international negotiations competition or something. That NBALSA literally could be a legal family that you have that you can use at any point in your life. These are people who you may get your partner. They may end up being the godfather or godmother of your kids. It has that much of a lasting effect. So when I think about NBALSA, I think about, branding and being able to brand yourself, but also it's still a family. And so when I meet someone that is a law student, the first thing I ask is, are you a part of your NBALSA chapter? When I have to do an event, for example, with the ABA-YLD, I'm gonna actually make sure that I pick a local NBALSA chapter that I do that event with. So I just think about, to me, it's the pipeline aspect and also the family aspect.
And so I'm going to bring this question back to you. So you just kind of explained the pipeline, the family aspect. And earlier when you were talking about some of the folks who came before or after you in NBALSA or SirBALSA, and by the way, NBALSA stands for the National Black Law Students Association, and SirBALSA stands for the Southern Region of the National Black Law Students Association. But you were talking about how some of them are in Washington, D.C. now. And so how did you leverage your kind of connections through NBALSA and SirBALSA to end up in Washington, D.C.?
Oh, that's a great question. You want to know why? Because NBALSA is why I'm in DC, how I'm in DC and ended up here. So long story short, my dean at the time, I'm not going to say his name because he wasn't my favorite person in the world. My dean at the time was asking everyone what they wanted to do. A lot of my friends ended up, wanted to practice, so to speak. So every time I would bring up the fact, I don't want to practice. Like, I literally would say that, y'all, every class. Like, I made it known Charlyn was not, she was going to be a policy professional. And people laughed at me. A lot of my classmates are like, I don't know, what are you going to do with that? You're not going to make no money. Like, that just sounds crazy that you're going to law school and you know that you don't want to practice. That's wild, right? And so my dean was a part of that clique that thought that, oh, what do you think you're going to do? And I said, oh, I think I want to, work more on the policy side and end up becoming a lobbyist. And I remember he asked me, well, do you think you have a personality for a lobbyist? And so then when he started to question me, it's like, oh, let me take this challenge another notch. So started interviewing for jobs. And I figured to do policy, I needed to, because I had never worked for an elected official, let alone work for local government, right? Our state government, our federal government. I either needed to devise a plan to be in Tallahassee, which is the state capital in Florida, or DC. Those are my two places. So I thought, let's do the big fish. So I thought, oh, let me apply for a lot of DC jobs. And then talking to my Balsa friends who had already worked on or interned on Capitol Hill, they told me it's who you know. And so I wasn't necessarily getting any interviews for the jobs that I applied for. And then they told me, well, Char, why don't you get your foot in the door? It's easier to do internships. And so I saw that Congressional Black Caucus needed an intern. So I put together this presentation. I'm dating myself. That's before all of the extra technology that, Gen Zers have now that they at their fingertips. And the person that was the actual intern in the CBC office at the time was a Nabalsa student. She was a year younger than me, Erin McIntyre. Erin was the incoming Western Region chair. So when she saw my application, she flagged it for her supervisor, which was Latrice Powell. She was the member services director for the Congressional Black Caucus. She said, Latrice, Charlyn just graduated law school, and I know her. She was on a national board for Balsa. Like, if she wants to intern for free, we should hire her. And so I got a call the next week from Latrice, and Latrice told me that, she asked me, did I know Erin? I'm like, yeah, of course I know Erin. My chair year, all the chairs were very close. And Erin was a successor for my friend, Chris Saunders. So I already was familiar with Erin. She was very nice. So that's how I ended up in Washington, D.C. and ended up interning for the Congressional Black Caucus, got my foot in the door, did that for 4 months. Somebody on the team left, and then Congresswoman Fudge, who is now the Housing and Urban Development Secretary, she ended up hiring me, and I ended up doing professional staff work, which is not policy work. So, sometimes you just got to get your foot in the door, because it's led me to having those relationships that's gotten me to where I am. All the Nabalsa friends that I had when I first moved to DC. So it was interesting. My Nabalsa board, about half of the people moved to DC right after we graduated. So those are the people that I ended up going to everything with. They were at my birthday party. We go to network events. And I would say 1/4 of that clique all started on Capitol Hill as their job. So it literally, Nabalsa is what got me through when I first got to DC too.
And so you mentioned this, I don't even remember it, whether middle, beginning, and whatever. When you wanted to go into law school, you were talking about healthcare law. And specifically, you're talking about following in Michelle Obama's footsteps.
Mm-hmm.
Do you still want to follow in her footsteps, or is there another legal warrior that you're looking up to, or where do you see the rest of your career going?
Oh, that's a good one. So just so that for the record, I'm not a health lawyer. I'm not a hospital administrator now. I am actually a media and telecom lawyer lobbyist. So I went a whole nother route. I definitely still look up to Michelle. I like women who can do a little bit of everything, so to speak. And it's just something about her that it's just some light that she has. I think that I really identify with. I've been blessed being in DC, and DC being exposed to a lot of different women who are lawyers in the political realm and the policy realm. So I have a couple mentors now that have kind of I look up to, and they're very influential in my life. One is this is going to sound weird, the Honorable Colette Honorable. So Honorable is her last name, but I say the Honorable. She is a former FERC commission. FERC is the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. She is a former public service commissioner from Arkansas. She is sweet as pie, but Colette really is someone I look up to because she's also a country girl and she stays authentic to who she is. DC is a town where people have imposter syndrome. They try to change who they are. Everyone knows that you go to an event, Colette is going to be the first person greeting you. She's gonna look bad in her suit. She's gonna have a nice suit on, the hair gonna be right, the heels gonna be right, but most importantly, she's gonna be warm and welcoming. And she knows energy policy in and out. She's one. I would say Secretary Fudge is one, since she's a former boss. In addition to being a former Congressional Black Caucus chair, former member of Congress, she's a former mayor of Warrensville Heights, Ohio, which is Cleveland in essence. Also, she's the former national president of Delta Sigma Theta. I'm not a Delta, but she's just a great person, been a great mentor and role model for me for the last couple of years. And she's also another person that does a little bit of everything. So I think the last person I would mention, and all these women are Black women, that I've been blessed to be mentored and guided by still to this day. Another person I would mention is the Honorable Rita Jo Lewis. Rita Jo is the president and CEO of Export Import Bank. And before that, she worked for the German Marshall Fund. She was in the Clinton administration. She's worked for Mayor of DC. She's also another country girl like me. She's from Statesboro, Georgia, which isn't that far from Jacksonville. So I think I've been blessed to kind of have some very key Black female lawyer mentors to kind of guide me and to tell me what I'm doing wrong, and to tell me what I'm doing right, and just to encourage me along the way.
And so we just talked about a couple of your Black female attorneys that you look up to or who have guided you on your way. And so my last question is tying this all back together. At the very beginning, we talked about how you're from Jacksonville. And we also talked about one of the middle schools that you consider going to was James Weldon Johnson, and you kind of hinted on his legacy. So James Weldon Johnson, a lot of us know, phenomenal attorney, one of the first Black attorneys in the state of Florida, especially to go through the oral examination for the bar exam, wrote Lift Every Voice and Sing, was a field secretary for the NAACP, laundry list goes on. What of his identity as a son of Jacksonville do you identify with, or do you try to emulate in your career as a daughter of Jacksonville?
Oh, I love that question. Just what you said, the titles. Well, part of his titles. I think that he was a true civic leader. And so when people think civics, they may think solely being in politics. And that's not what civic leadership necessarily solely is. Civic leadership is, and you don't have to have a title to be a civic leader at all. It's being able to be a part of every facet of the community that you're a part of, and being a person to guide and come up with a way to bring people together in those communities. So we talk about James Weldon Johnson being a part, being a lawyer, before law school, all of that for Black people, right? Like, that's wild to think at that time frame how brilliant he was when it came to law. Then we talk about him being a church leader and a composer and writing Lift Every Voice and Sing. We talk about him being a part of the NAACP and more of the advocacy and the civil rights era during that time. I think it's just being a part of a little bit of everything and bringing people together from all different backgrounds and all different sources, and knowing that it's okay to do a little bit of everything and be a part of every type of community that you have. So for example, for me, I think when I think about James Weldon Johnson right now, I'm doing a lot with the National Bar Association. So that's part of my legacy and part of my heart from loving Nabalsa, loving Sir Balsa, and being a part of that. Also, I am a member of the Junior League of Washington. I started out as a member of Junior League of Miami, and Junior League is a civic organization for women. So I've been on that board for 3 years. I suffered from uterine fibroids, like a lot of Black women out there. And so I am a part of a advocacy organization for women suffering from uterine fibroids, PCOS, and endometriosis called the White Dress Project. And then also, James Weldon Johnson was a teacher. I've been fortunate to be a professor for my alma mater, FIU, here in DC, for the Washington, DC interns that they have. So I basically teach their intro to DC seminar and class. Now it's fun for me because I just pick my friends and be like, oh, this person worked in administration, come speak to my class.
Mhm.
Or, this person worked on the Hill with me, come speak to my class about the Hill. Or, you're a lobbyist, come talk about what lobbying is. But most importantly, I like that I'm able to be a mentor. And I'm able to be the type of professor that I always love my professors who were open, who were authentic, who had an open door policy, who, were no nonsense, but at the same time, they mentored their students. And that's kind of how I like to, see myself. And a lot of my students from FIU come from immigrant backgrounds. A lot of them are the first to go to college. Maybe some of them are the first generation in the United States. And they come from all these different backgrounds: Venezuela, Cuba, Ecuador, Haiti, Jamaica, you name it. I'm learning from them more than they think that they're learning from me. So when I think about James Weldon Johnson and being a son of Jacksonville, I think it's like bringing all those communities together.
So very much for your time today. And just thank you for giving your story.
Thank you for all that you do. We love you, hence the love in your name. And nice meeting you, Allie.
It's very nice to meet you. I enjoyed this, and thank you so much for sharing.
All right, y'all take care. If you need anything, let me know. All right, take care.